Felly, noswaith dda iawn i chi ar ran Cytûn, Eglwysi ynghyd yng Nghymru a Masnach Deg Cymru. Mae'r bartneriaeth rhwng Eglwysi a Masnach Deg yn bartneriaeth sy'n mynd nôl reit i gychwyn Masnach Deg. Ac dros y blynyddoedd, dros y hanner canrif diwethaf yma, mae stondinau Masnach Deg yng nghefn Eglwysi yn neuaddau Eglwysi mewn digwyddiadau eglwysig wedi bod yn rhan bwysig o hybu Masnach Deg yn yr eglwys a thu hwnt iddi. Ac am flynyddoedd, roedd y stondinau yna'n cael eu hadnabod fel stondin Traidcraft, oherwydd bron yn ddiwahân gan Traidcraft oedd Eglwysi yn cael ei nwyddau Masnach Deg ar gyfer y stondin. Fe fyddwch chi'n ymwybodol bod cwmni Traidcraft yn anffodus wedi dod i ben ar ddechrau eleni. Ac felly mae'r cwestiwn yn codi, wel beth newn ni felly? Mae ambell un wedi dweud mae Masnach Deg wedi dod i ben, ond yw hynny yn sicr ddim yn wir. A mae gyda ni heno tair siaradwraig fydd yn cyflwyno i ni ffyrdd eraill y gallwch chi gefnogi Masnach Deg. Mae yna fwy na thair, ond ni'n mynd i fynd ar ôl tair ffordd heno yma. A wedyn bydd yna digon o gyfle i chi holi cwestiynau a hefyd rhannu'ch profiad chi o'ch eglwys neu'ch mudiad neu o le bynnag i chi wedi dod o hybu Masnach Deg mewn ffyrdd eraill yn y sefyllfa newydd hon. Felly mae'r tair sydd gyda ni siarad, mae gyda ni Kate Dixon o Transform Trade, Lenshina Hines o BAFTS, British Association of Fair Trade Shops, a Tracy Mitchell o gwmni JTS. Bydden nhw siarad yn y drefn yna, mi wna i cyflwyno nhw yn eu tro. Fe glywon ni'r tair yn siarad, yn esbonio beth mae mudiadau nhw'n cynnig, a fe gewn ni'r holl gwestiynau ar y diwedd. Os chi eisiau sicrhau bod chi'n cofio'ch cwestiwn, croeso chi roi yn y chat yn ystod y cyflwyniadau, mae hynna'n iawn, ond fyddwn ni ddim yn delio gyda nhw tan ar ôl y tri chyflwyniad. A gallwch chi roi yn y chat yn Gymraeg neu yn Saesneg, bydd Kate yna fynnau'n cadw golwg ar y chat. Mae'r ddau ohono ni'n medru'r Gymraeg, felly pidwch â ffetruso rhoi yn yr naill iaith neu y llall. Felly, mae'n bysedd mawr gen i gyflwyno yn siaradwraig gyntaf ni heno yma, sef Kate Dixon. Mae Kate wedi bod yn gweithio i Transform Trade ers 2016, ac enw Transform Trade bryd hynny o Traidcraft Exchange, a bydd yn esbonio'r cyswllt yna mewn eiliad. A hi yw'r arweinydd cynnwys yn y tîm ymgysylltu cyhoeddus, sydd yn ffordd posh o ddweud bod hi'n casglu ac yn rhannu hanesion am waith Transform Trade ac yn sgwennu adroddiadau e-byst a deunydd ar gyfer y wefan. Felly Kate, drosodd i ti. Welcome, Kate.
Hello, thank you. And thank you all for coming tonight. First step for me was unmuting there, so that feels like a win. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Transform Trade's plans in a post-Traidcraft world. I've got some slides, so if it would be possible to put those on, that would be fab. There we go. So a little bit of background. I'm sure you will probably all know, but Transform Trade used to be known as Traidcraft Exchange. We're a registered charity. We work to transform trade systems and empower people in supply chains to fight for justice. So we run projects, we campaign for change, and we influence policy. The kind of background to us is that we were set up by Traidcraft, so that people who were selling products could have somewhere to donate their profits. And also so that we could do work that the PLC, the business side of things, wasn't able to do. So we were able to work on aspects of trade justice that Traidcraft couldn't work on. So a little bit of background. Obviously, we were devastated to learn that the PLC were going into administration at the start of this year. Our first reaction was obviously we've always worked very closely with them, but to work out how we can continue their mission going forwards. So a bit of background on the brand. The brand Traidcraft is not owned by the PLC, owned by an organisation called the Traidcraft Foundation, which held the guardian share in Traidcraft PLC, so that foundation could always protect the vision and mission of Traidcraft. So when the PLC went into administration at the start of the year, the foundation took the decision to award sole use of the Traidcraft brand to Transform Trade, as it's felt that Transform Trade are the best placed organisation to continue that pioneering spirit of Traidcraft's mission long into the future. So there were different parties interested in being endorsed by the Traidcraft Foundation and owning that license to call themselves Traidcraft's successor, but the foundation decided only to endorse Transform Trade because we share that living history and that pioneering strategy and its values and missions, and we grew up with them. We are Traidcraft. Can I have the next slide? Thank you. Big question, what's next? Next slide again, if that's okay. Thank you. So all of our usual work is going to continue. We work on tea, we work on fashion, small-scale agriculture, campaigning for systemic change. So all of the campaigns that you probably see and hopefully take part in, they'll continue to run. All of our projects will carry on going. From the supporter side, things like the Fashion Watchdog, which is one of our campaigns, Big Brews, the ethical raffle, the community events and treks and challenges, all of those will keep going. But going forwards, we're going to do a few more things. So on our next slide, thank you, you'll be able to see a little bit about our new business partnerships. So as part of our work honouring that mission of Traidcraft and really trying to pioneer new ways of doing fair trade, we're growing our partnerships with ethical businesses, and you can see 6 of the ethical businesses that we've partnered with. So we're going to use the Traidcraft brand as this seal of approval for businesses, and JTS is one of them that are here tonight, whose ethics and practices that we have full confidence in. The big thing for us is that as the kind of inheritors of the Traidcraft brand, it's our duty to ensure that it retains its integrity. So our promise is that we will not allow it to be associated with anything less than the highest standards of ethical behaviour. Next slide, if that's okay. Thank you. You might have seen recently, we've also launched a fund in response to Traidcraft's closure. So back when Traidcraft had to downsize in 2018, we did a lot of work with the producer groups they could no longer buy from. And that work was really successful. We helped them find new buyers. We helped them kind of stabilize their organizations. So at the end of March, we launched the Producer Fund. And again, you can read quite a lot of this on our website if you'd like to. But what made Traidcraft special, especially back in 1979 in the early days, was that it nurtured producer groups. So it didn't just buy from people. It supported them to become fair trade certified. Obviously, we helped set up the Fair Trade Foundation itself, but not just to sell their products, but to become kind of more environmentally friendly, more sustainable, to improve the work that they were already doing. So we helped them with their whole fair trade journey. And that's the work that the Producer Fund will continue to do. Now, things have changed since 1979, and we will be looking not just at producers who are selling to the UK, but producers who are selling in their regional markets, basically anybody doing really interesting fair trade principled work we're interested in investing in. So some of them will be familiar producers that we'll be supporting, so ex-Traidcraft suppliers, and some will be new organisations like Sadhna. So Rambo, who's pictured there, is from Sadhna, who are an all-female garment collective in Rajasthan. And they're a really interesting producer-owned organisation. And they're one of the first kind of grantees from the Producer Fund. They're using some of their grant money to employ more artisans from disadvantaged caste backgrounds, and also to produce some sort of new eco ranges and improve their environmental credentials. So thanks very much to everyone who's donated. A lot of our new business partners have also been supporting this fund, which is great to see. So you can really see that kind of post-Traidcraft togetherness and that mission to really support artisans and producers is already in place. A lot of what we want to do is about partnerships. It's about working hand in hand, not just with producers and artisans, but with other people who share our mission and our vision. So could I have the next slide, if that's okay? Thank you. This is just a quote from, I say just a quote, I think it's really interesting. This is a quote from one of the textile artisans working for Sadhna, just telling you a little bit about the impact that working for an organisation that shares those fair trade principles has on her life. Next slide, it's okay. Thank you. So post being awarded the Traidcraft brand, we've got some new plans for the immediate future. So we're launching a new range of Christmas cards this summer. 100% of the profits from those cards will fund Transform Trade's life-changing work, which is really exciting. We were previously part of a consortium, but we took the decision that we would launch our own range this year. So that's a new one for us. We'll continue to grow our business partnerships. And the producer fund will continue hopefully to expand so we can reach more amazing ethical and fair trade artisans and producers across the world. And what we'll be doing with that was we'll be leaving that fund open. So whilst it's an appeal for a time limited period and have match funding, and that's been brilliant, the fund will be an ongoing strand of work for us. Next slide, please. So long term, our plans are to restore impact and credibility to the Traidcraft brand. That's kind of the big thing, but what's next for Traidcraft from our side? Next slide, please. Here you go, a little bit about our focus will always be on the people who matter most, the producers and the artisans who are fighting for a fair deal. So we promise, and we're helped by the fact that we're a charity, that every decision we make has producers and not profit at its heart. So we won't allow the Traidcraft brand to become associated with anything less than the highest ethical standards. And you'll see that in our business partnerships and in all of our work. We hope that you'll continue to join us in the fight for trade justice, because together we can continue Traidcraft's legacy and we can build a world where everybody benefits from the profits of trade. And that's it from me. Thank you for making it to the end of that.
Diolch yn fawr, Kate, am y cyflwyniad yna, a dwi'n siŵr bydd yna gwestiynau'n codi ohono fe, felly diolch o galon. Nawr te, yn hael siaradwraig ni heno yma yw Lenshina Hines, sydd yn bartner yn fair and fabulous, dwi'n dwlu ar enw yna, a hefyd yn gadeirydd ar BAFTS, the British Association of Fair Trade Shops. Fe ddaeth Lenshina yma i Gymru yn gyntaf fel myfyrwraig Mhrifysgol Caerdydd, a gweithio wedyn ni yn beiriannydd yng Nghasnewydd am lawer o flynyddoedd. Wedi geni i merch, fe benderfynodd bod i eisiau newid i gyrfa ac fe sefydlodd Fair and Fabulous sydd yn siop Masnach Deg yng Nghastell Newydd Emlyn. Yn ogystal â bod yn ysgrifennydd ar i grŵp Tref Masnach Deg leol, fe ymunodd Lenshina a bwrdd BAFTS yn 2021, ac fe ddaeth yn gadeirydd y mudiad yn y gynhadledd flynyddol a gynhaliwyd yma yng Nghymru ym Machynlleth yn 2022. Felly mae'n bleser mawr i ofyn i Lenshina nawr siarad â ni. Diolch.
Noswaith da. Hello everybody. Lovely to see some familiar faces from various fair trade events in Wales. Thank you to the organisers for inviting me to speak. As Gethin says, I have several hats, but the main ones I'll be wearing tonight will be as a shop owner, a fair trade shop owner in Wales, in beautiful Castell Newydd Emlyn. And our shop is a member of BAFTS, and BAFTS is the UK Fair Trade Network member of the World Fair Trade Organisation, and is a network of shop members and supplier members buy directly from artisan producers in the Global South. So BAFTS has about 100 members, sort of 50 shops roughly, and 50 supplier members. And of those shops, about 30 are what I'd call proper shops, bricks and mortar shops, the rest being made mainly online, although many of the shops do sell online as well as in person. So what BAFTS members have in common is that we are all committed to the 10 principles of fair trade as set out by the World Fair Trade Organisation. Traidcraft itself was a member of BAFTS, and like Kate and Transform Trade, we were devastated by the news of them going into administration. And also, like Transform Trade, we worked very closely with them in 2018 when they had previous difficulties. We managed to find buyers to work with a lot of the craft producers who Traidcraft had to let go at that time. And many of the shop members that we have now, they started life as fair traders before building to having their own shops. So we understand how people have devoted so much through fair trading to the fair trade movement, and we want to do everything we can to continue to support you to be able to do that. In Wales, we had 3 shop members. I'm sure you will all be as saddened as I was to hear that Fair Dues in Cardiff will be closing. And I know I think that a lot of you probably worked with Jan and her amazing team to get supplies for your stalls. The other shops then are ourselves in Newcastle Emlyn and 18 Rabbit in Hay. They're the Bath shop members. But like I say, there are members across the country who have websites, who will, are able to sell a lot of the products that you are used to buying. If you reach out to us, have a dialogue, see what we can do, how we can work together. We are interested in helping you to be able to continue in your journey, if that is what you want to do. And maybe you'll see some things by looking at different BAS members that you didn't know about outside of Traidcraft that you might be interested in. It's a very growing and diverse range of independent shops within our network, and we're seeing a lot of new suppliers coming in, really interesting people who are working, tend to be directly with one producer group and really reaching the most disadvantaged producers, people in prisons, people affected by landmines and polio, all sorts of people that they are working directly and closely with the highest ethical standards. And we're happy to support Transform Trade. We're very pleased that they were given the legacy. We know it's safe in their hands, and we will work with them and in partnership with everyone to let us all achieve our aim, which is fair trade and trade justice. So yes, reach out to us, work with us. We will see what we can do. There must be someone in the BAS network who can help you find what you need to buy.
Diolch yn fawr, Lenshina, am y cyflwyniad yna. Mae yna bobl sydd ddim yn bell o Gastell Newydd Emlyn ar yr alwad yma, dwi'n digwydd gwybod, felly maen nhw'n gwybod lle i fynd i siopa nawr. Diolch yn fawr. A'n trydydd siaradwraig ni heno mae yw Tracy Mitchell, sydd yn rheolwr gyfarwyddwraig ar JTS. Mae wedi cael gyffroes yn gweithio gyda Diageo, wedyn gyda Shared Interest, unig fenthyciwr Masnach Deg y byd, a wedyn wedi ymuno â JTS wrth iddi ddechrau, wedi dal nifer o swyddi yno dros y blynyddoedd gan ddechrau yn ei swydd bresennol yng Ngwanwyn 2020. Mae Tracy hefyd yn un o'r bobl yna sydd wedi cynnal stondin Masnach Deg yng nghefn I Eglwys am bron 20 mlynedd. Felly yr union bobl oedd y webinar heno wedi anelu atyn nhw. Wedi gweithredu am 3 thymor ar fwrdd Fforwm Masnach Deg yr Alban. Mae hi fel Lenshina yn gydlynydd ar ei grŵp Tref Masnach Deg leol ac wedi bod yn ganolog i sefydlu meithrinfeydd Masnach Deg yn yr Alban. Felly mae'n braf iawn cael rhywun o'r Alban yn ymuno gyda ni heno i ychwanegu at siaradwraig o Loegr a siaradwraig o Gymru. Felly croeso, Tracy.
Thank you very much. It's really good to be here. As you've already said, I have run a fair trade stall at the back of church. It did start as a Traidcraft stall when I first joined as a Traidcraft fair trader 20 years ago. At that point, I was working in mainstream business, and it was through doing a fair trade stall at the back of my church that I got more and more interested in fair trade, and in late 2004 took the jump out of the corporate world to work for Shared Interest, who some of you will be aware of as the world's only, as far as I know, fair trade lender. And I worked for them for 4 years before then starting with JTS at the point where JTS got started. JTS, for those of you who don't know, stands for Just Trading Scotland. And we stopped using that sort of long version of our name because people thought we just traded in Scotland and other sorts of variations on it. But later in my presentation, I will give you an update on our new name and things that are coming. Could I have my first main slide, please? Okay, so you may have seen some of these products. Some of these products, if you've been buying from Traidcraft, you would have seen in their catalogue. We have direct relationships with 7 producer groups, mainly in Africa, but 2 in the Indian subcontinent. So 5 in Africa, 2 in the Indian subcontinent. And our relationship with them is as a long-term partner. We import from these 7 organisations, but we also work with them as Traidcraft did through Traidcraft Exchange years ago in terms of development. So we've worked with particularly the farmers of the rice in Malawi on a couple of Scottish government funded projects and on more smaller scale projects that we funded through either modest local grants or through fundraising. We're also working and on one of those, we've worked with CASFA to become a WFTO member themselves, World Fair Trade Organization. We're in the process of doing the same, supporting Meru through the WFTO process as well. So those products that you can see there are most of our sort of core range. So we bring in rice from Malawi, jams and chutneys and condiments from the Kingdom of Eswatini, the beer bread, which is an intriguing gift product, really popular in the lead up to Christmas, from South Africa. Quite a range of grinders and spices and sauces from South Africa, pulses from India, coconut milk and curry pastes from Sri Lanka, and then the jams and pasta sauces from Kenya. If we could move to my next slide. Back in the autumn of last year, we started a process of adding some what we are calling friends to our online shop. So at that point, we added a small number of products from Equal Exchange and from Liberation, and I think Quinola at that very early stage. We wanted to offer people, I guess, a better basket of goods and to build collaborations with other fair trade organisations. So we started that in October last year, I think it was. We added to that range significantly in response to the number of calls that my team were fielding. Do you do chocolate? Do you do coffee? Can we get this? Can we get that? In the immediate sort of post-Traidcraft period. And very soon there'll be a new logo appearing on there, because today I believe the team placed the first order with Cafe Direct. So we are building the range of products that we can supply from other fair trade organisations, and I think that's important for all of us. It's certainly, you know, it's been useful to me as I run my fair trade stall at the back of church, that not only do I get my JTS products from JTS, but I can now get some of these other ones. In terms of how you would deal with us, if we go to the next slide, we have an online shop. You don't need to sign up for a specific account or become a JTS fair trader or anything like that. We simply offer volume discounts. So if your order is over £50, you get 10% off. And if your order's over £150, you get 15% off. And if you order cases, you get a small discount on the case, as opposed to buying 6 individuals. Those discounts apply automatically at checkout. You don't need a specific code. You did used to need a specific code when you know, before we launched this simpler approach, but now it's a very straightforward automatic process. So we would love people that used to run a Traidcraft stall at the back of church to run a stall, to continue to run a stall, and to come to us as one of the sources of products for that stall. If I could have my next slide. Something else that we've run right since day one of JTS is something called the 90 kilo rice challenge. This partly comes about because when we first started, we had imported one whole container of rice from Malawi. That's what got us started in 2009. And my job at that point, on a contract basis, which was only meant to last till March 2009, and I'm still here. So I clearly I must be doing something right, I guess. But my job at that point was to find a way of selling this 18 tons of rice. And my husband was very used to, as I'm sure some of you are, eating up out-of-date food from my fair trade stall when I didn't manage to sell it. And he said, you're going to have to come up with a plan because I'm not eating 18 tons of rice. So the plan that we came up with, I can't take responsibility or credit for the actual idea, but just the implementation of it, I suppose, in those early days was the 90 kilo challenge. 90 kilos being the amount at that point that a farmer had said would make a significant difference to his or her livelihood, and specifically would be the amount that would enable them to send a child to secondary school in a country where less than 1 in 3 children have that opportunity. And what we do is we challenge churches and schools or community groups to sell 90 kilos of rice, and there is a pack that goes with it, and Caden actually has copies of the basic pack in Welsh and we have it in English as well. There is then a CD of lesson plans or sermons and so on. They are only currently in English. And we've had, I think it must be almost 1,000 different groups take that challenge over the 10 years, and we would love you to take that on as well. Couple of other things I'd like to highlight for you just before I finish up. So the first one on the next slide, we are trying to grow. And if anyone would like to help us with that, one way is to continue to support the producer fund that Transform Trade are running, because we have been working with them, and we are hopeful that the Transform Trade Fund will support Meru Herbs, which is the producer group that we import from that's most vulnerable following the closure of Traidcraft. Traidcraft were a significant part of the demand for the Meru Herbs products. And whilst we're trying to fill that gap, the funding that hopefully Transform Trade will be able to provide to Meru will be significant. We are also running a growth and development fund to help us invest in new products, some of which will come from Meru and some of which will come from other suppliers. Traidcraft were a significant part of our business, so we have a big gap in our sales at the moment that we're trying to fill, and following, like, obviously the pandemic and all the supply chain challenges that happened following that, we haven't made enough of a profit to invest in our own growth. So we would be really grateful for any support that people felt able to give us there. But I think on my next slide, I just want to tell you a little bit about what's happening within JTS this year, which is really exciting. We have just announced last week a rebrand, and we are going to become known as True Origin. And if it works, Caden has a link to a very short video, so rather than me talking anymore, we'll listen to that. It will be a little bit jumpy on Zoom, so hopefully you can hear it fine. If you can't, we can send the link around so that you can watch it separately. Thank you, Caden.
The packaging of our products may be changing, but our commitment to producers, fair trade and the protection of our planet has not. True Origin exists to bring delicious, award-winning, fair and fine foods together, empowering smallhold farmers and their families as we continue to honour the origin of our products. Join us as we create together foods that have true impact as origin.
Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, Tracy. Ac wedi cychwyn y cyflwyniad ar ran JTS ac wedi gwpla fe ar ran True Origin. Felly oedd hynny'n dipyn o newid mewn 10 munud. Diolch o galon I chi am gyflwynio. Nawr te, I chi sydd yn gwylio'r recordiad, dyma ddiwedd y webinar I chi. Diolch I chi am wylio. Ni'n mawr obeithio bydd bod yn tair siaradwraig ni wedi rhannu gwybodaeth o ddefnydd I chi. Mi fydd y wefan lle mae'r recordiad yma hefyd yn rhoi modd i chi gysylltu â Masnach Deg Cymru os ych chi am gael rhagor o wybodaeth. Felly, i'r bobl sy'n gwylio'r recordiad, diolch yn fawr.